Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Engadget Podcast live stream recording. I'm reviews editor Sherlyn Lowe, and I am joined by senior editor Devendra Hardwar.
Howdy.
As well as the producer of the podcast, Ben Elman.
Yes. Hello.
So we do this thing every Thursday morning where we record the Engadget Podcast, but we also live stream the recording session here on YouTube in case you're new. But if you're not, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again. Today we're going to talk all about Apple. Because what else happened this week? Oh, also some Sony PlayStation stuff. Devendra's been...
Technically, that was last week, Sony, but now's our time to talk about it.
Everybody's getting the PS5 now. Like, people are actually putting their hands on it.
Yep.
So we'll get into that a little bit. Just a reminder for everyone that's watching on YouTube, because we're actually recording a session or an episode of the podcast for release on things like Spotify and I guess SoundCloud. We won't be able to talk directly to you while we're recording, but leave us your questions in the YouTube chat or tweet us at Engadget using the hashtag podcast live, and we'll get to your questions in between segments. So I think right now we're ready to start recording the episode itself.
Yes. Speaking of at Engadget hashtag podcast live, I'm seeing one person who tweeted at us. It's regarding the iPhone 12. And so when we get to our little iPhone 12 thing later on in the episode, I'll bring that up. Or maybe like right afterward. Or
yeah. Sweet. So I think we're ready. We're already recording audio on our end. We are good to go. You guys all good?
Yes. So I'm ready when you're ready.
Okay. Video team ready? Sweet. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Engadget Podcast. I'm reviews editor Sherlyn Lowe.
I'm senior editor Devendra Hardwar.
And today we're going to talk all about Apple because they had their One More Thing event and couldn't stop bombarding us with stuff. But also the iPhone 12 mini and the iPhone 12 Pro Max reviews are finally live, so we can take a deeper look at those two devices as well. And of course, it's console season. We can't stop talking about the consoles. We are finally able to talk all about the PlayStation 5, so there's a few details on that too this episode. But before we get to all of that, please, if you're enjoying the show, subscribe on all the podcast platchers. Let me take that again when you're ready. Yeah. But before we get to all of that, if you're enjoying the show, please make sure you subscribe to all. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay.
Platchers.
It's a new word of the day. Platchers.
Platchers.
Exactly. Okay. But before we get to all of that, if you're enjoying the show, please make sure you subscribe on all the podcast platforms available. Leave us a review.
Start with leave a review.
It's live broadcasting.
It's all good.
It's Apple. It's all Apple's fault. Okay. Leave us a review on iTunes and send us your thoughts and feedback by emailing us at podcast@engadget.com. We also do live stream our recording sessions Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Engadget YouTube channel. So if you want to join us for a little fun live chat back and forth and Q&A sessions, check us out there.
You'll see how long this intro took to record in real time.
All the 3 takes, the funny words that we came up with. All right. Are you good to jump into Apple?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. On Tuesday this week, I believe, because I can't remember the exact day anymore, Apple had its One More Thing event where it unveiled a bunch of Mac-focused stuff. It unveiled this like brand new Apple Silicon chip that I wasn't expecting to be released so early, but I guess it's been in the works for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was coming, but not so many devices with it, right?
Right, exactly. To quickly run down what was announced, right? Like the new Apple Silicon chip is called the M1 chip. Then there was the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro and a Mac Mini, and all of these were using the M1 chip, as well as some updates to Big Sur, specifically optimizations for use on these ARM-based processors. So, Dev, what's your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway is that this is the biggest news Apple announced this year. It is their
Really?
last
Wow.
event. We're just kind of tired, but it is. It's a fundamental shift in the way Apple does everything, because the M1 chip, this is its own hardware. It's basically what they've been doing for the iPhone, the iPad for the past decade, but it's a custom chip that's ARM based, has all their optimizations, but it's also like a very powerful system on a chip. So it is a single chip that has the RAM and the CPU and the IO and even like the Thunderbolt technology for
Yeah.
faster ports, which is
Yeah.
Intel technology. So Intel technology is built into this, but the heart of the processor is all Apple, and it just sounds, at least based on the benchmarks they shared, and some we've seen from other sites too, like Anantech.
Right.
It sounds astoundingly powerful. Nobody has officially benchmarked the N1 yet, but Anantech had benches from the A14, so like the last gen iOS chips, and that thing benches faster than AMD and Intel's latest desktop chips. Like that's pretty much it. And if you look at that benchmark, you kind of see, Intel, AMD steadily going up, Apple growing exponentially in chip power every year. So by next year, if Apple had stuck with Intel, or even went over to AMD, Apple would have been limited by its competitors because its own chip designs are getting better. So it sort of answers like why Apple is doing this. Apple had to, because they've spent so long making their own chips. Now they have something super powerful that can truly take on Intel in the notebook space, maybe eventually in the desktop space. The M1 chip it's a pretty big deal. I'm just going to go over a couple quick things about it here. It is an 8-core chip with 4 high-performance cores, 4 high-efficiency cores. So it's very similar to what Qualcomm has done with its like big little Snapdragon design, where they have the higher-powered chips and the lower-powered stuff. So it's like built for efficiency. It has, the company also has an 8-core GPU, or up to 8 cores. Because one thing I learned just looking at the specs is that the base level MacBook Air, which is $999 still, and a very good looking machine, that base level MacBook Air only has a 7-core GPU. So they kind of skimped on certain things here and there. But it's a very powerful GPU too. It's, again, very similar to what we've been seeing on iPads and iPhones. So yeah, this chip being in something like the MacBook Air is kind of astounding, because it's a tremendous amount of performance. The MacBook Air, the new one, has no fans because your iPhones and iPads don't have fans. So they didn't really need it for that. And just that alone, I think for everybody, for a lot of consumers, going to be like, this is the perfect computer for me, because it's a light, portable thing that is still plenty powerful, and that doesn't sound like, an airplane getting ready to take off like so many laptops do. We need to see more about how this chip works on the MacBook Pro 13-inch, which tends to be more for power users. And the Mac Mini, I know a lot of people like those machines because they want the flexibility of like a mini desktop. They could put it anywhere and just have like a very nice, powerful system. Apple is still going to be selling Intel versions of the MacBook Pro 13-inch, actually all these computers, because some people may need more RAM. So the only like big downside of the M1 right now is that it's limited to 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is, the RAM limit of all these systems, really. Like, it was the RAM limit of the MacBook Air, but you could configure the MacBook Pro 13-inch to up to 32 gigs. So the Intel chips are sticking around just for the people who really, really need more RAM. Beyond that, like, it's just phenomenal what Apple claims to be doing here. Like, it sounds like they've basically turned the MacBooks into giant iPads, just in terms of the optimization of the OS and the chip. That's an advantage they've had over every single Android phone, right? Because iPhones are custom tuned for the exact hardware that Apple is also building. So they're aiming to do the same thing for MacBooks. I think it's pretty exciting. I'm worried about the compatibility stuff. They announced a new version of Rosetta, the emulation tool that came when the Intel switch happened 15 years ago. So that's going to basically emulate Intel-based apps. So everything should just work. But it sounds like it's also pretty easy for developers to optimize apps for the M1 as well. So we're going to see a lot of that happening over the next year. What are your thoughts, Sherlyn? I also want to point out, we did a post-show chat about all this. So if you want to hear us dive in even deeper, be sure to check that out. That's up on our YouTube channel.
When you were saying that Apple's keeping the Intel versions around, that was my first thought, was that the part of the reason too is before all the apps get compatible natively, there's also that reason to have the Intel version still available for people to buy. I think yes, for more power, more RAM, or not. I don't know about more power exactly. I mean, these again to
Definitely
remind
more
everyone.
power in some
Yeah.
instances.
In some cases, like, we don't know what it's the head-to-head comparison yet, right? The Core i9, the Intel Core i9, does that have a equivalent in the M1 range? We don't know. I don't know anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they're not putting any chips in the 16-inch MacBook Pro yet, or the Mac Pro, right? Like,
Right,
it seems
people
like
want power.
they're waiting for a much more powerful part to come next year or at some point.
Right, they might be able to launch the, what Qualcomm called its extreme chipset version of the ARM-based chip for PCs, right? When Qualcomm did this, they started using the Snapdragon 845. Then they were like, oh, we made one specifically for PCs. And then they were like, 8CX is the extreme chip for PCs. And maybe Apple has something like that coming. My biggest thing is, yes, like one of the biggest challenges of switching over to a new chip architecture like this is the app compatibility. And Rosetta 2, sounds like it's going to be smooth. Again, I feel like I need actual
emulation
time
is always hit or
thing,
miss, right? You lose speed with emulation. So I really want to see how that works for sure.
Yeah, so would love to check that out. And also, I think, like, to your point, Dev and devs seem to be very much more interested.
Yeah,
much more interested in making their apps compatible with universal versions, which is Apple's name for their like ARM compatible apps, than they were for Microsoft, just because the same problem with
let me just sit here and laugh for because this is all I've been covering, Sherlyn, right? Like, when we cover Microsoft, every Microsoft event is just like, Microsoft to developers, please like us. Please build something for Windows 10. Please.
Oh gosh, yes.
Please, Windows on ARM. And it's begging and it's groveling. And Microsoft tries really hard to get those developers, but developers aren't excited to do it because, hey, Windows is a platform that's been around for decades, and people know how to build x86 apps, and they just want to build it their own ways. They don't want to put stuff on the Windows Store. Whereas Apple's like, really, I think, does a good job of just like bringing people in and being like, hey, your app is this much better by being optimized for our stuff. And it's a really compelling sales point, rather than, an hour-long Microsoft build keynote, which may occasionally highlight some things for developers. This is just what Apple does. They've always been good at getting devs. Yeah.
And on that note, just to give y'all a little bit of a Sherlyn history lesson here, and at the risk of dating myself, I used to be, in computer club, whatever, and we took part in coding competitions. And I was introduced to, this is way back when, I was introduced to visualbasic.net. And I hated the crap out of VB.net. It was the worst thing. The
story of every developer. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Looking at what Microsoft has and being like, no, I don't want this.
Do not want to code for this goddamn thing. But anyway, I understand when you put that in that kind of perspective. I get it right now. Like, Apple seems to just make it so much easier for developers to build.
You look at like the Apple promo dev video, and they're all like, yay, it's great. We got it working in 10 minutes. We have fast apps. Everything's super smooth. And the Microsoft side is just like, well, we have Azure compatibility and yada, yada, yada. And it's like very nitty gritty. And I get it. Devs love that stuff. But also, I think people just nobody wants to do much work. Here's the thing I've learned in my time. Everyone is kind of lazy, and we don't want to do the extra work if we don't really have to. Apple has always done a good job of inviting developers and giving them reasons to do the extra work to be faster. And there's a certain cachet for Mac apps. Think of like, it's a lot of people I follow on Twitter, but there are people who I know are just like Mac heads, and they love the pristine style of a Mac app and the way something's built for Mac OS versus Windows. And there is still something to that. And I feel like the M1 chip is the ultimate culmination of all that. It is pure Mac, pure Apple, and apps built for that, like apps that can take advantage of it, will have a significant advantage over everybody else. So there is a reason to do it.
I mean, so the point I was trying to make earlier before we kind of went in this tangent was that The issue here is like a parallel, right? Like Apple's
Mhm.
been able to woo developers on iOS the same way
Yes.
it's had success there versus Android, because also, like you said, it owns all of that hardware. It runs on that much amount of hardware, and in the
You
same
don't
way
have to
we see
support like 50 different phones with your app,
right.
right? It's a
You
couple
don't
of
have to
phones.
accommodate for so many different screen
Yeah.
sizes or
Yeah.
different like I don't know what else might be different on different phones, or I can't remember offhand. But anyway, Macs are the same, right? And also
Mhm.
MacBooks are like very popular, like used very widely. They're not like
Mhm.
Dell's XPS 13 or like within
Hey.
the Windows ecospace.
Yeah.
Ecospace? What is mean with
Sure.
what does that
EcoSpace.
mean words? Ecospace. Um, they're not like the Microsoft ecosystem where there's
Mhm.
so many different like
Yeah.
brands of laptops too. And so like there is a lot of excitement on developers' part too, because they know they'll reach that number of people when they
Mhm.
design an app and port it over. There's more pressure as well because there's so many more people asking for these updates or like upgrades to universal versions. So I think I don't want to hate on Windows too much because I
No,
am a
listen,
Windows user.
we both cover Microsoft. We are, I think, the only dedicated Windows users on the Engadget staff.
Yeah.
I'm running this, like, I work all day on my Windows desktop. Like,
Yep.
I really like Windows as a platform. It's just, I know where Microsoft is not good, and it's not good at getting developers on board and building things and getting those native apps. So, hey, Apple's playing to its strengths right now. The M1 chip sounds interesting. I really want to see what it's going to mean, for the future, because this is basically Apple charting its own course. They don't need Intel as much. They still need the Thunderbolt port. All these things are coming at the same price as before, so you're not paying a premium. And actually, the Mac Mini is $100 less than last year. So, there are a lot of good reasons to do this. One thing a lot of people kept coming back to me to is just, hey, I bought a MacBook Air this year. I bought something recently.
Right.
Should I just replace it with this? And we're not at that point just yet. If you bought this year's MacBook Air, which we reviewed and we really liked, that's still a great computer. It has a fan. It doesn't have some of the, whiz bang features of the new MacBook Air, but the hardware, just from what we've seen, the actual case and everything is exactly the same. So you still have a great keyboard on the Intel Mac. It's still very powerful. And same for the MacBook Pro and the Mac Mini. This isn't a rush out and buy thing. This is more Apple just saying, hey, for people new to our ecosystem, people looking to upgrade, if you have that crappy MacBook Air from 2 or 3 years ago, yes, this will be a huge improvement, because those Intel Y series chips were just not great for a long time. But if you bought a computer recently, you're fine. It's just, this is a transition period where I also think it's also good to wait a little and just see how well products perform on this new architecture. Buying first gen anything, even if it's an Apple product, is generally not a good idea if you're worried about compatibility and stuff. So there are a lot of good reasons to wait. Don't upgrade immediately, but I am really impressed from what we've seen so far.
I will also say that I haven't spent any time whatsoever with the new software running on the M1 chip. So much as I am excited for Apple's success in this space, because I think it'll push a lot of people to be better in the PC space, I have to wait and see, right? Like I feel like I need to couch against people who are already going to be like, you hate Microsoft. I'm like, no, I'm not.
No, we are literally the only Microsoft lovers. Like, we are the only people who would go to bat for Microsoft for so many things. I love Microsoft's platforms because, I could just build a computer and, install Windows and it'll just work. But for a self-contained thing like an ultra portable where I want the slimmest, sleekest notebook around, I see the benefits of Apple doing its own hardware for the MacBook Air, for the MacBook Pro 13. But hey, at the end of the day, I'd still rather have a laptop like the XPS 13, but we contain multitudes, people. It's okay. It's okay to get excited for this little bit.
Yeah. Now, speaking of some of the hardware here, one question that kept coming up when we had a live stream post-show recap on, I think, Tuesday too, was whether or not there's still going to be external GPU support.
And I thought it would.
We thought it would, but right after its event, Apple removed GPUs as a compatible accessory.
And I can actually understand why, because it's not like that is a very complex accessory, right? And a GPU, a video card, is a mini computer of its own with tons of transistors and a ton of work that will need to go into getting those working on new hardware, and maybe Apple just never built the hooks for eGPUs into the M1. That would kind of make sense, actually. And also, I don't know how many people are actually using external GPUs with these things. So maybe they were like, it's just not worth it right now. I hope on the more powerful desktop bits, like on the whatever goes into the MacBook Pro 16-inch, I hope they add in some of that functionality, because pro users really like the ability to expand the hardware that they're using. I've talked to people who have a MacBook Pro 16-inch and really like that computer, but when they get really down and dirty with their work, they plug in an external dock and they use the extra GPU, the power they have for video rendering. So there are uses for that. I hope Apple hasn't forgot about its true professional users, because that seemed like the problem with them for a while, right? They were aiming so hard at casual users and mainstream users. The Mac Pro was a joke for years, and it's better now, but still not the best thing in the world. So Apple still has a long way to go. Any closing thoughts on all this, Sherlyn?
I mean, I don't know, like, if it's necessarily closing thoughts. The other thing that we, learned after our post-show recap was that the FaceTime camera on these laptops is still the 720p version.
They say it's better. They say it's a better camera, but still 720p. That's not great.
And in a time where we're so reliant on our webcams to communicate with the world now, that seems like a thing that they should try to improve.
For sure. Well, another thing worth mentioning, by the way, is battery life. And I feel like that's the big draw for Apple here, because the iPhones and the iPad have some of the best battery life in the industry for those device types. So Apple having its own chip, being able to fully control the power architecture and everything, should mean much better battery life for all of these machines too. So that's good. That's useful.
And that's the whole point of big little architecture, right? The fact that you have these efficiency cores running that take less energy but still perform some of these less demanding tasks without sapping your energy. So for sure. I am definitely stoked. I feel like ARM, architecture does bring better battery life in general. I just want to see like how much better.
Yes.
So there's a lot to, I think, look forward to. And right now, without having, seen these things or tested them hard, I can't really like tell you anything too evaluative. I will say though,
it's exciting, right? It's exciting, like for tip geeks, for people who love looking at hardware and the fundamental changes of how computing platforms are built. You can mark this week as a monumental moment for Apple. Just as much as 2005 was, or was it 2006? Around then when they made the Intel switch. So it's a big freaking deal. But don't throw out your old computer right away.
It sounds like you're super hype. I want to hear what you, my dear listener, have to say. What are your thoughts? Are you as hype as Devendra about these chips? And what do you want to see in the next version that might bring more power to be used in like the 16-inch MacBook Pros? Like, what do you think Apple should do? Send us a note at podcast@engadget.com and let us know if you wouldn't mind us, sharing your thoughts on the next episode as well. All right, Ben? Was that okay?
I think it was good.
I turned my mic off. Let's go straight into iPhones.
Yep.
Okay.
All you.
So this week, we also had the full reviews of the iPhone 12 mini and the iPhone 12 Pro Max published on our site. The embargo's lifted. Hallelujah. Yay. So these are basically Apple's teeny baby phone and big chunky boy phone. And
they should just go with those names. Like, I feel like mini is just too easy. Just teeny and big chunky boy. Yeah,
exactly. I like pizza sizes. That's all I want. Like teeny slice or the entire
Supreme iPhone. Yeah,
right. The Supreme Pie and the mini slice. But yeah, so our Chris Velasco, our senior editor for mobile, has has spent a bunch of time with them, but I also managed to get some hands-on time at an event here in New York. Very socially distanced, all the precautions were taken.
Oh man, I've forgotten what that's like to actually go to a thing and test devices. Weird. Okay.
It was certainly like, we had like a 30-minute appointment to see both these phones and then like churn out a video really quickly after that. Right. So that was not a lot of time. I didn't get to spend as much time as I would have liked, but I can tell you, having seen these two phones in person, oh my Lord, should I buy the iPhone 12 mini?
I mean, just reading V's review and reading everybody's reviews, it seems like, man, it's really cool. to have a small premium phone, but man, this battery is not great. And there's a reason we actually have slightly bigger phones, so they last us all day. So I'd worry about the battery life of the Mini, but I am, having read all these reviews, I was actually waiting for the Max Pro to see, hey, is that extra camera system actually worth it? It doesn't actually sound like it is. I was watching between Chris's review and other people like Marquez Brownlee, like there is a barely an advantage with the iPhone, with the 12 Pro Max's cameras, which is like the main reason I'd want to upgrade. So I have an 11 Pro. I'll probably just stick with this for a while. And I've been trying to get my wife on iPhones. I'm like, I'll just get her a 12 because it's a little more affordable and 5G, and it'll have all the like, she'll still be on iPhone and have good hardware that'll last her a while. So that's where I'm at. But what are your thoughts, Sherlyn?
So again, debating the Mini for myself, I think I'm so drawn to it because it's so small.
Tiny. Yeah.
It's so cute, but you're right. I think the 12 Pro will serve most people. The 12, sorry, will serve most people better. It's still a nice compact size. And you know, all the features that you said, 5G hardware, that's also available in the
good
Mini.
Cameras. Yeah.
But well, I think the same camera setup as the Mini as well.
Yeah.
But
the 12,
Mini,
like, let's just be absolutely clear. It sounds like the 12 system this year, just the 2 cameras, is great. Is fantastic. Because people reviewing the 12 Pro, you know, the smaller one, which is the exact same size, barely any difference other than the telephoto, right?
Right, exactly. The triple camera, the third camera doesn't do a big difference. But back to my point about the Mini, though, the main reason the battery life suffers is because it's got all the same features, like things like the OLED screen, the 5G radios. Those things drain the juice, but in a smaller body, so not room for a bigger battery.
Right.
And that's probably why. So
that's definitely why.
It's up to you. For me, I might go for the. Well, I don't know that I need that much battery life, and I might want the Mini for the cute factor.
It feels like an experiment, right? It feels like Apple just trying this, being like, hey, people really like these SE phones, which are small and tiny, or, well, it's still not as tiny as it used to be. But the Mini, compared to the second SE now, has a bigger screen. You know, it's even a little
nicer
more portable
design.
Yeah.
And 5G and OLED, you know, and the A14 Bionic, all of the good stuff. I think the battery life is a concern. It's hard for me to think of battery life as a concern these days because I'm inside all the time. But
I mean, even in my house, because I don't always leave my phone plugged in. Like by the end of the day, just running around, taking calls, doing different things, I still like kill my battery in a way. So you still see it, you know?
Right. So, I mean, I think that's the main thing about the Mini, right? There seems like very little reason to get it unless you really like that tiny, tiny size and you're okay with no battery life. The Pro Max, on the other hand, to your point, Dev, like with the Pro, it was the same thing. It's, oh Lord, it is too huge. I was playing with it at the event, and I could not stretch my thumb across the finger to get the letter A. Did I say my thumb across the finger? I meant my thumb across the screen.
To get the letter
A.
So just like one-handed performance for typing, right? Not
right. And people have pointed out on our hands-on video that you can use the one-handed keyboard, which shifts the keyboard a little bit closer to the
side. But sometimes you want to touch other things on the screen too. It's not just the keyboard.
It's icons. It's right. Like if I'm using it one-handed and the browser has maybe the buy button all the way on the other side of the screen, I can't. Like
if you want to swipe down to your notifications with one hand, forget about it. If you want to swipe down to your settings or something, you can't.
You know what I need to get very good at doing? I need to get very good at using my nose as a second finger. You know what I mean?
Please don't do that. We have a coronavirus going on, Sherlyn. You should not be putting your dirtiest object to your face because you've got so many other things to worry about.
I'm kidding, but
think about. I'll tell this to people. Like, think about the way you use your phones. Like, do you lay down in bed and just like casually, scroll up and down? That is much harder with a half-pound device with one hand. Also, if that device falls on your face, it really hurts. And
plastic surgery.
That's happened to me before, but also like I need to do stuff. I'm holding like a 2-year-old who's like squirming and fighting with me, and I need to do stuff on my phone. Doing that one-handed with the Max, just impossible. So really think about your use cases, because big phones are great, but two-handed phones only, like, man, they just require so much more effort.
I think it's fine if you have the bigger hands that make this easy for you.
I have big hands. Yeah.
At 6.7 inches, the screen is the biggest that Apple's ever put on an iPhone too. So if some people I think need that for visibility, right? I think for accessibility, there are some benefits here. And I am fully on board with that. In Chris Velasco's review, he said that this is the best iPhone too, like of this year's lineup. And I can understand the battery life is a huge bonus. And the big screen is nice. The cameras probably fly as well, are nice. Again, same point that you were making, Dev, that third camera is not useful to most people. It just feels like overkill. One of the things that
it's a pro phone,
Right. It's the camera too is overkill because one of the things it does is shoot in Dolby Vision, 4K HDR, and at 60 FPS. And like, okay, well, do you really want to be shooting all of that with your phone camera?
I could see the usefulness for that, just because one big reason I upgraded to the 11 Pro last year was just to have a better camera for baby photos and baby videos. So to have the best quality camera around to make sure you capture the full dynamic range of your child, running through a field of flowers or something, then I will support that. Like it will look better. The whole point of Dolby Vision is to capture more color information and more highlights and everything. And I haven't seen too much results from the videos, but I want to have the ability to say like, okay, I'm getting the best I can with this hardware,
Yeah, and I had someone who's, their job is to make videos for social media, for TikTok and Instagram, reach out and say that like, oh yeah, very curious about the Pro Max's video quality, and they seem to really be planning on getting that for their job or their livelihoods. And if you're that kind of person, if that's you, then this is you're the right audience for sure.
You're the pro. You're the pro they're looking for. Right. By the way, but HDR stuff, like you can't, if you shoot HDR video and then you're looking at it on a non-HDR screen, like things look washed out. It doesn't look great. So I do wonder, like, it's not great shareable content to do the Dolby Vision, but it is great archival content to have the best quality version you can imagine on your phone.
It'll probably look really good on the phone screen too.
Yeah.
So it will look good to you, but like to Devendra's point, it's not that shareable. One interesting thing I wanted to point out when I was reading V's review was I forgot altogether that they had this sensor shifting based image stabilization, and I was really intrigued by it. Right, only in the Pro Max. And because they have that much more room to play with to let the sensor move about in there. And I just was so excited to see how that worked. And it turns out it just doesn't make that huge a difference.
No.
And it's like, no, come on.
This is Apple's problem. Like, not to fawn too much on Apple in this episode, but the problem is they made some of the base level hardware too good. So the iPhone 12 camera is already great. The Max, we assumed these things would actually really help. And it turns out not kind of a huge difference. It is really cool to see sensor shift on a phone because that's like a DSLR feature, right? That's something you get with a much more expensive camera, but it doesn't seem like it's doing much here. Even the LiDAR sensor I saw from a few tests doesn't really help with night shots, doesn't really help with autofocusing really fast. It's there. That's cool.
I used the LiDAR on the 12 Pro Max at the event to measure, using the Measure app, the length of the table. So,
which I do more often than you'd expect. Yeah.
I mean, you just move, so you're probably like measuring furniture and walls and stuff.
It's useful.
Like that.
Yeah.
It is useful. It's a useful feature. I think that's the type of stuff that LiDAR is supposed to be good for. We haven't really used it that much. For me, at least, out in the real world. So if your job involves a lot of measuring and you can trust an AR app rather than a tape to do that, by all means, get it. It seems like an expensive purchase for that reason, but okay. But yeah, the camera thing too, you said that it was meant to help with low light shots and stuff like that. Again, haven't gone around to testing that. I really, though, want to put the Apple cameras to test against Google's Pixel cameras. Sure. To me, Pixel cameras are like the leader in the space. Sure. And Google's computational photography is so great. The portrait mode on these Pixel phones are just so much better than the competition. So I really need to see head to head how they perform. If you guys already know, because somehow you already bought the iPhone and you have a Pixel, let us know. You can tweet at us, send us an email to podcast@engadget.com. Tell us if you think the Pro Max is the phone for you, or the Mini. Maybe you get that for your child.
Maybe just go for the 12. I do feel like even for pro users, this is the year where the cheaper, like the base iPhone is great. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I might go for that one instead. And it's nice that like it starts at a more reasonable price,
Yeah.
I want to say. I'm not entirely sure that they're really worth it for the money. I don't know. It's nice to see prices come down a little bit, at least at the starting range. And then the Pro Max still starts at like $1,100, which is not great. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, if you have thoughts, like we said, just send them to us, podcast@engadget.com.
Okay, let's do a really quick lightning round of
Sure.
yes,
Yeah, we got some
Q&A.
time.
Yeah, it's really just like a couple minutes because we are doing well on time. Here's another thing that everybody in the chat should know about. Our video team said we've got to get off and like do something else by 11:45, and so
let's say 11:30. We're shooting to wrap up.
We're shooting to wrap up by 11:30, but we really need to get off by 11:45 to allow our video team to do other things. So, just so you know, like there might be a little bit less in terms of Q&A and all of that stuff.
But we've got a lot of other videos for you guys to check out that we've done this week.
We've
so
got
you know,
lots of other stuff for everyone to check out. And so let's do a quick lightning round right now. One of the things that people were speculating about in the chat is just the possibility of like a MagSafe external battery, or external battery like
people were talking about that,
or something like that.
Yep, about that too. So the MagSafe case, someone on Twitter pointed that out to me too. It would still need to be wired for it to charge fast enough, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah.
Even if it's like just MagSafe snappable.
Well, no. What do you mean? Like the case itself charging? Yeah, you would need a wire for that.
That's what I meant. Like you still need the connection, the lightning connection to charge better. But I mean, sure, I could also get a portable battery. I also get like a battery case.
It's not a huge problem.
I think the dream here is coming back to the idea of swappable batteries from forever ago.
That would be so nice. I miss that.
Yeah, you could just be like, oh, let me turn off my phone for a second and just like hop in a new battery.
That was a bad user experience. Let's not go back to those days.
Really?
Let's not. It was fine, but it was also, do you remember what those batteries were like and how little those phones actually did?
The batteries are bad, the capacity was not great.
Yeah.
And then, but I remember the fun of just flipping off the cover and switching a battery in, and lo and behold,
and also like putting on a hot pink faceplate onto your like Nokia phone.
And you have phone cases, you have the skins that you can put on phones,
So anyway, another question from Peyton on Twitter. Reminder, tweet at us at Engadget, #podcastlive. They say, is this the camera, or in regards to the iPhone 12, is this the camera worth quitting Android for? I'm working from home for the next 10 months. Is now the time to make the switch, because I can can I stop debating buying a 6400?
We're going to have exact opposite reactions to this, I think. But what do you think?
Well, I don't know yet, because I need to put the cameras next to each other to test, right? For now, I'm going to stick to pixels, because the camera, I have always found that iPhones have this green yellowish quality that I just don't really like. It's again the debate between Nikon and Canon, right? Like, I'm a pixel girl, I'm a Canon girl. I like a slightly cooler vibe, and I think Dev is going to tell you that you should prefer the iPhone cameras.
No, I mean, when it comes to low light, that's something that Android did really well for the longest time. Like, you look back to the performance, the video differences, the differences between like the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 8 compared to the Pixel at that time, night and day. Since then, though, Apple has done a great job of kind of optimizing things. And when it comes to like general shots and just not thinking about the settings and everything, just taking out the camera, taking a photo, assuming you get as much as you can, I do think the iPhone, you're better off. Like when it comes to Android, so many other manufacturers are throwing in a ton of cameras and a ton of features and everything, and those cameras aren't so great. Look at the like they're not great cameras. I care less about like the amount of stuff you're shoving in rather than the quality of the sensor, the optimization of what you're doing with the software. And I do think Apple has the best overall balance, but pixels are good for pixely stuff. I'm just not super compelled by the 4 at this point.
Peyton, that I think the answer to your question also depends on what Android phone you're talking about,
Yes.
right? If you're using like a OnePlus, definitely an iPhone,
No.
right? If you're using a Galaxy, it depends on your taste, right? Generally, Google is to me top of my list when it comes to clean photos. And then you've got Apple, right? Apple's quality is actually very good. It's clean. It's the color, hue I don't really like, but whatever. And then you've got all the other Android phones that are like struggling to find some processing software or algorithm that will make their pictures look great. So it depends on what Android phone you're talking about. With the Pixel, I would say wait for a bit and let us do some more testing. And then I'll come back to you with an answer probably.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now if you're viewing from America, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, or South Korea, today is PlayStation 5 launch day. So let's talk about the PlayStation 5.
Sure.
All right. Do you want to lead this, Dev, or do you want to?
I can lead it. But just throw it to me. Yeah.
Okay, I'll throw it to you. Okay.
Yeah, go when you're ready.
Cool. So Apple wasn't the only company in the news this week. We've got our PlayStation 5 full thoughts. We did a gameplay live stream yesterday. That is Wednesday this week too, with Jess Condit and Dev. You can go check that out. You played Demon Souls and
bunch of other games.
Morales.
What else? We played Miles Morales. We showed Godfall. We showed a bunch of stuff. So if you want to see it in action, in as much as we can show in the restrictive format of a stream, because you can only get like 1080p 60 video, it's a good chat, and Jess and I had a good time talking about like what makes the PS5 so unique and special.
But I've been thinking about what console to get for a little bit, and this week news broke that Overcooked All You Can Eat will be a launch title for. I saw it first on the PlayStation blog, so I was like, "Oh my god!"
There are other games, Sherlyn. There are games beyond Overcooked and Solitaire. Come on.
Listen, I will discover them soon enough. But right now, it's Overcooked All You Can Eat, and it will be launched title on the Xbox Series S and X as well. But the Overcooked on the PlayStation 5 will.
Wait, so what are you excited about? Because it's also coming to Xbox.
Well, no, I'm excited for the DualSense integrations. I really want to know how that feels like. You guys have been playing with this controller for a bit now. I want to know what the extras are. But anyway, Dev, what are your thoughts now that you can say whatever you want about this console?
For sure. And I will say, also go check out my full PlayStation 5 review at Engadget, and we did a whole video about it too. It was kind of a trip to basically write 2 whole console reviews in a week and shoot the videos and do all the stuff, because it's just a lot to take in. But I think my main takeaway is just the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, they're both great. They run basically the same hardware. They offer the same sort of optimizations for games. Both run really fast SSDs. Both have like AMD CPUs and GPUs. They're great for 4K gaming. It's going to be a huge upgrade once you start to see games that take advantage of it. Sony's advantage here is that they have those games kind of already. Miles Morales looks great. It looks fantastic. Was it Demon Souls, which I just played a bit yesterday, looks like an amazing conversion. It looks like an amazing remake. Yeah, because I am used to looking at Demon Souls screenshots and thinking this ugly game is what people are so obsessed with. They did Bluepoint did a great job of just remaking that title into something that looks lush and beautiful.
Looks so good. Holy
yeah.
crap. Looking at the
light.
I'm looking at the game right now.
Yeah, and the stream doesn't even capture like the way the light looks with HDR with a newer TV and stuff. So, if you want to have the feeling of like, man, I have next gen gaming in my living room, the PS5 delivers that a little more than the Xbox Series X. I think the Series X is more of a wait and see as more games appear. And I love the DualSense controller, as we've all talked about. It feels really good. It feels really next gen. I don't know how Overcooked is going to take advantage of it, but Miles Morales gives you like a good web slinging feel when you're cruising around the city. It's really Astro's Playroom, which we didn't get to play on the stream, but we've talked about before. We talked about that on the previous stream. But Astro's Playroom, does a great job of just telling you all the capabilities, like resistive triggers. You pull back the trigger enough, you can actually feel like you're pulling back a bowstring and letting it go. And Astro, like the rumble is so good. It makes you feel the difference between walking in different surfaces. And by the way, we're going to be talking more about Astro's Playroom. I have an interview with the director of that game, Nicholas Doucet. That's going to be on the podcast stream in the coming weeks. Maybe that'll be our Thanksgiving, hangout chat. Yeah, our little treat. And it'll probably go up on Engadget as a text interview before that. So keep an eye out for that. But basically, hey, this is a great console. I think it feels more next gen immediately than the Xbox Series X does. But there's a reason I scored them exactly the same, because I think they all have plus and minuses. Microsoft has Game Pass, which does have a ton of games available, is slowly getting optimized with more things for the system. And I think for a lot of people, that's going to be just as compelling as these handful of next-gen titles that Sony has immediately. This is kind of a short-term lead Sony has, but they both have a lot of games. I actually just started playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla on the Xbox Series X, and it looks fantastic. And it's running in, I believe, 4K or a type of 4K, and definitely at 60 FPS with a ton of visual settings. So PS5 is great. Xbox Series X is great. Don't fight kids, but pick the platform that I think your friends are using. That's usually the way you do it, right? The people you want to play multiplayer with, that's kind of the platform you want.
True.
Although even that is becoming a little different this generation, because crossplay is more and more of a thing. So you can crossplay across consoles, you can crossplay across PCs. There's just a lot. I think hardware-wise, I lean towards the Xbox just because I think that box feels better. The hardware, like, it's completely silent. It is a beautiful little mini PC, like the PC I've always wanted to build for myself. Whereas the PS5 is this weird postmodern plastic sculpture that I hate looking at. I viscerally hate looking at the thing, and I have to move it sometimes too to like bring it over to my computer for streaming. And it's so big, it's so unwieldy, it feels cheap as heck. So I don't like the PS5 design, but they're all the same underneath. They both play 4K games really well, so don't flame me over that. I have my preferences. Maybe you prefer the look of the PS5. Like, it's fine, totally fine. Live your life.
I mean, two thoughts. One thing is, I think I've decided which console I'm getting.
Oh no.
Between the two.
I'm ready to be disappointed, but okay.
Yes, you are going to be disappointed. I think I've decided on the PS5.
Wow.
Because
enjoy.
I've touched this thing at a friend's house who's also a reviewer, and I mean, it didn't feel that bad to me. It was laying on its side, hidden away in an
I can't trust
console.
your thoughts on like console hardware. That's all.
My other reviewer friends also say they don't feel like it's super cheap. But anyway, it's also the unwieldy thing is definitely a valid point. I don't see myself. Right, I know, but I don't see myself moving it about a lot after I get it set up the one time.
Sure. Hopefully. Most people won't,
Right, exactly. I mean, for you, it's hard because like you have to move it around so much for video, for like just doing these live streams. So I get it. And then I don't know about discs, but I don't know if there's a discless edition.
You don't need the disc,
right? So I want the discless one. Hopefully, that's a little bit cheaper. But I think my main reason is because yes, y'all have sold me on Xbox Game Pass, but I think one of our video team members, Julio, was saying that with a PC, Game Pass also works really fine, like really well on that.
Does, and I think you don't have a gaming PC.
I mean, I might. Who knows? I might get. I mean, I have enough machines here. I'll check it out. I think what I'm going to do is check out Game Pass on a PC. And then if there's enough titles that draw me in, then I start feeling like I really want to play on a console.
Game Pass is really good on PC. It doesn't have most of the titles that are on Xbox.
Okay.
Like, just fair warning. Like
but if I get
for Xbox,
if I start shopping on Game Pass, I'm like, oh, if I need an Xbox to play this, okay, maybe I'll buy the Xbox. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm gonna start with the PS5, use the Game Pass as a way to kind of dip my toes in the Xbox water, and then see if I want to get an Xbox after. And maybe the Series S is a good like side companion to the PS5. But I also have a feeling.
I'm looking forward to you coming to the full realization of everything Jess and I have been telling you from the beginning. But yes, enjoy the PS5.
Yeah, who knows? So we'll see. But the other thing I wanted to say then is that where can people get the PS5 now? It seems like they're all hard as hell to get.
I mean, good luck. Good luck. I mean, there were a couple stories, right? They're not being sold in stores just because it's bad. Like, they don't want the pandemic rush. So the best thing you could do is keep an eye on like deal sites and famous Twitter accounts like Wario64 is a good one
yeah.
for video game deals or cheap ass gamer, and they usually like list like in the middle of the night, hey, PS5s at Target or Xboxes at Walmart. So
Right.
if you can keep an eye on that, if you haven't pre-ordered one yet, that's probably your best bet. I do think overall though, like for many people, you don't need to rush out and get this unless you're
Right.
running the base PlayStation 4, like the original, or the base Xbox One, because those systems, okay, those are feeling a little old. You're probably feeling the performance hurt, and you want to upgrade immediately. So those folks, yeah, jump in it immediately. But if you have a PS4 Pro, if you have an Xbox One X, you could still play most of the third-party games. It'll still look very good. And then when you can get stock and upgrade, like do that down the line. You can transfer saves. This generation, more than any other, is very like seamless in terms of how you move into it. So I think there is less of a rush there overall.
I was gonna say the exact same thing, which is that I don't think I'm gonna need to rush to buy it. I'm not in a huge hurry to buy this. I'll be happy to wait till next year even. It's already midway through November. And I don't need to play a lot during the holidays, I guess. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, that's
My Switch
exactly
is
the
still
time
fine.
when you'll be playing a ton of games, because
My
what
little
else are you
Switch
gonna
is
do?
still fine. My poor baby. That's true, I know. But I'm gonna
What
just
else are
keep
you gonna
getting
do?
better at Overcooked on the Switch. So
There you go. And you have a ton of Switch games to play. You have all the great indie games on Switch. So
Exactly.
I
still haven't played Untitled Goose Game, by the way.
Oh my god.
I
Which
know.
basically you're the lead character of Untitled Goose Game. So
it's made for me.
it's Sherilyn in real life just goes around honking at things and causing havoc.
Honk. I don't even know what the sound is, but yeah.
That is, good job. It's almost like you're a goose.
Do you have any final thoughts, Jeff?
What's that?
Wrap it up.
Do you have any final thoughts?
No. Final thoughts. I think it's okay. I think the PS5 is a great system overall, but I think the Series X is too. So, hey, it's a good thing for gamers. We all have good hardware to look forward to. And if you're a PC gamer, you've got new GPUs to look forward to too. So I don't want to hear any of the like PC master race stuff, which, by the way, that term sounds gross.
It's terrible.
Look at yourselves, people. Like, where is that term coming from? Think about it just for a second. But PC gamers, console gamers, you can all enjoy good 4K gaming now. Console, like, the joy of consoles is that it's seamless. It's just a thing you turn on, and you stick under your TV, and you download games. And I think both of these do that really well. But if you're a PC gamer and you have much faster, like a fast refresh rate monitor, and you're more demanding, then you have AMD stuff to look forward to. You have NVIDIA hardware to look forward to. So it's great for everybody. Stop fighting. Play more games.
Okay, that's good.
All right. We can go into the other sections, or we can do a Q&A.
Yeah, a little bit of Q&A.
Sure.
Okay.
The chat was mostly getting rowdy because they wanted to see more dog. They just wanted to
that's
see
good.
Jess has
The
dog.
dog
wanted to
was
see
fading in. No, that's Kyle's
dog
dog.
for forever.
We do have shots of Jess's dog behind her during our live stream, so you can go look forward to that.
I like this fade in that's going on, but like that's I think our video people playing a trick on us, because like it fades in and then it almost shows us full dog, and then it just goes away, and I'm like, come on,
Never go full dog.
come on. Wow.
Always go full dog.
Full Doge.
Engadget Podcast.
And Dogecast.
Yes, something like
And
that.
Engadget Podcast.
Okay, so yesterday at the meeting, I said that I was playing Control because you can stream that onto the Switch.
I'm amazed you're doing that really well, but enjoy. Yeah.
It's like I'm already looking forward to replaying Control on a next gen console.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear about that. But okay, so I've played 4 hours of Control and I've already figured out the entire story. Like, just get ready for me. To be very impressed with my ability to figure all of this out. So this is all about like a woman who's trying to find her brother.
Yeah. Spoilers just for the opening chapters.
Yeah, like literally no, but this is literally like the premise that you can see in any review. It's a woman trying to find her brother. She goes to this big creepy possibly Manhattan building.
Definitely Manhattan, like brutalist.
Everything is very confusing.
Yeah.
This Control is actually secretly a Half-Life tie-in game, and her brother is just the G-Man from Half-Life. That's what I have to say about that.
There are certainly G-Men in Control. Yeah.
It just makes so much sense that like this place, the Federal Bureau of Control, with its like
Mhm.
crazy shifting
I love it.
architecture and
I
everything,
love it so much. Yeah.
is where G-Man hangs out when he's not antagonizing Gordon
That's where
Freeman.
G-Man just sits and has his coffee
Yeah, it's where
while
he
his
sits and has his
donut shape
coffee.
shifts in front of him.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, that door that he always comes out of, it goes back to the control building.
Give us your thoughts, chat, and do not spoil Half-Life Alyx if you
No,
played that
don't
game,
play.
because it's
Don't
all
spoil Half-Life
don't
Alyx.
spoil
Don't spoil
anything.
Control, please, because
Don't
I'm
spoil Control.
really, really enjoying it.
I love, shout out to everybody who has not played Control yet, but I love the narrative of Control. But I'm also a big X-Files fan and a big Twin Peaks fan. And it's just like good at burrowing into like mystery, conspiracy in fun ways. It is very much X-Files-ish in that it exists in a world where weird things are happening, and the Bureau of Control exists to make sure nobody believes, the weird anomalies popping up in the real world. So
That sounds interesting.
I love reading all the all the notes and everything throughout the world. They're fun things throughout. You should play it, Jillian.
Yeah,
Where can I play it other than streaming it on the Switch for some reason?
Because it's way too much. You could play it on next gen console whenever that update hits. You can play it streaming on the Switch. It's going to be fine. I don't know if it's syncing saves. You should play Hades, because I already mentioned that to you. I think you'd enjoy the hell out of Hades.
Hades? Oh, was that a pun? The hell out of Hades?
Yeah.
No, I think I would. Yeah. Do you know what? Y'all just send me your like supernatural horror game
recommendations. Solitaire games. No card games.
No. I played all forms of solitaire too. Like free cell spider.
But you don't need help most of the time. You need help with like the narrative stuff.
If you have a good like horror themed solitaire game, I mean, send that my way. Like make one. Someone
spooky
make one so I can play it. I would be super into it.
Okay.
But no, any horror game, like the Resident Evil, I think it was 5 game, not Resident Evil, my bad. Alien Resurrection game.
Alien Resurrection
looked so good when it was released. I was so into it. My friends talked about how scared they were when they were reviewing it. I was like, I want to play this game. And back then I was like definitely not going to get a console at all. So maybe now, what can I play that on? PS5 probably?
You could play it on, I think, PS4, Xbox One, and
Sweet.
PC. And
See,
PC,
that's the
but
thing.
not Switch
Well, maybe
yet.
I'll just play it on the PC for now.
So we have a question from Mohammed in the chat. He's asking thoughts on Google stopping Google Photos high quality unlimited backups.
I'm so sad.
Hey, what did I say about never trusting Google? Never trust Google.
No, it's they
will disappoint you every step of the way. But go ahead, Shirley.
Yeah. I know. I that was too good a deal to keep going for that long. Let's just put it that way. I saw kind of the writing on the walls when the free storage thing kind of went away. I can't remember when. And then I started having to pay for the storage. And now that, unlimited high res or high quality, or in fact, just unlimited photo storage is going away in June next year. It bums me out. According to Google, most people won't even come to the free 15 gig limit. Most people only use about 3/4 of that 15 gig limit that they're offering. For me, that's definitely not the case because I shoot a ton of videos.
And I have at least 100 gigs up there, but I also pay for the storage too. So I want the high quality. Yeah,
exactly. I think Google doing this or making that comment that most people won't hit that limit isn't taking into account the TikTok generation, the Instagram stories generation.
I don't think. You think they're using Google Photos? I don't think those back up. Media, I wouldn't want to underestimate them, but also, I mean, Google also is failing to serve them or serve the eventuality that these people might want to back up at some point. I don't know. It's up to you. Like when I post an Instagram story. I
post my camera focus looks off as hell. When I post an Instagram story, it automatically saves a copy to my phone. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'll delete it from my device and then it gets backed up to the storage. And that's perfect. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I'm going to probably pony up the money that Google's looking for me to spend.
Sure.
They might have seen the success that Apple's having in the services space and decided we want some of that money.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm paying Google for extra storage. I'm paying Apple for extra storage for my backup. So this is all these companies are going to nickel and dime you. But yeah, any beautiful, great deal you see from Google, like it's never going to last, which is a shame because how many other companies are literally just always printing money? Storage is the price of storage is being driven to zero. It seems like it is the best way. Like, it seems like the best thing for Google is just to say, like, hey, free storage, we can afford it. We're Google. We're Google.
And they did that for a while. They should have. I wish they would have continued it. And they do give free 15 gigs of storage. That's still 3 times what you get with iCloud.
15
still 3
gigabytes
times what you get with iCloud. Fuck.
I'm
iCloud gives you 5 gigs.
So
I'm saying they're both garbage. Yeah.
Frequent flyer in the chat, D-Man says, true that, never trust the Goog. That's
trust
all.
the Goog.
That's the whole
Never
comment.
trust the Goog.
I mean, it's sad, but you can't trust big companies for the most part. Any company where their main goal is profit, you cannot trust them.
I mean, that's every company. That's
any
every
company.
single
Yeah, exactly. Well, nonprofits. Yeah. But yeah,
you can't even always trust them because their goal is fundraising. Having worked with a lot of nonprofits,
because they need the money to do whatever
because they need the money. By the way, speaking of Google disappointments, if you're a YouTube Premium subscriber, which I am, as much as I crap on Google because I like YouTube without ads, it's an amazing experience. You can get a free Chromecast Ultra and a Stadia controller. You could get the Stadia Pro bundle. Check out. We wrote a story at Engadget about that yesterday. You could get that bundle. What are you doing?
I'm just trying to get my camera to focus.
What are you doing? We go. Stadia, by the way, Shirley, if you sign up for something like Stadia or xCloud, that's actually a way for you to play next gen games because you have good internet, and then you could just stream it, and that's fine.
I know, exactly. My internet is super great, so I think that's a good thing. I should never have put my Switch in front of my face. That's what screwed up my camera's focus, but I am back. Yeah, I think I'm going to try that.
Okay, so we can't finish a conversation about Google killing things without saying RIP Google Reader. Just like RIP Google Reader.
It's done. It's dead. I've moved on.
It's been dead for like 10 years.
There's a lot of things from Google we could RIP.
I see like 3 or 4 random tweets from people that I never thought would be into Google Reader who are like, damn, I think
Google is
so bad. Miss Google Reader.
They're so bad at like honing in on the things that really work with consumers, or at least even a dedicated portion of users. And meanwhile, they will like build crap like like Stadia, launch it ahead of time and not really serve anybody's needs. But anyway, this is my constant problem with Google. We can move on.
Okay, yeah.
Let's go and you can quickly follow the account Killed by Google on Twitter. They will log everything that you missed that's been dead.
Everything.
Okay, let's go in on the quick things. TikTok and vaccine.
Yep. I'm gonna check up things.
Steph, do you want to just take this?
Yeah, just throw it to me. Or I could. Yeah, I'll just take it.
Start it.
Just take it.
All right, let's move on to just a couple of things. The U.S. election is still ongoing. Apparently, like we are still in a weird, paradoxical space. Hey, Saturday morning, the election was called for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and I celebrated. And that is the reality we're living in, even though not everybody seems to be admitting it. But hey, that's fine. Let's talk about something funny, which is that TikTok, CNBC reported this week that TikTok is still waiting to hear back from the Trump administration about the whole ban thing that the Trump administration just spent the past couple of months really, really hyping up because apparently it was a way to show strength or something. Meanwhile, TikTok did do a bunch of things and again, TikTok owned by ByteDance, not exactly a small company and not like an innocent in this matter, but it was a weird target of just a lot of scorn by the Trump administration. So as of a couple months ago, what was it, September, TikTok announced a deal that let me just here. As of September, TikTok announced a deal saying that it would form a new US-based entity, TikTok Global, I believe it's called, with 20% owned by Oracle and Walmart. So that is their kind of way to fix the idea of being owned by a Chinese, major company. And TikTok presented the deal. We reported in September that Trump was like, sure, okay, fine, this sounds good. And they've heard nothing since then. So I just really want to take a step back and look at the ridiculousness of this whole moment. Of course, the Trump administration is busy, right? Their leader got COVID, got the entire White House infected, and there was a whole election thing. The election was kind of a big focus for a lot of people. They still think they're in the election, so they're probably focusing on that. I just think it's hilarious. I think this is a hilarious end to this whole story, where today is the date, November 12th, as we're recording this, is the date the Trump administration originally said TikTok
The
would
deadline.
be banned if it did not,
Right.
if ByteDance didn't divest from TikTok in the US. And nothing's happening because they're also like there was never any consequences listed of what would happen to TikTok if they didn't.
These are so-called,
follow
you
that
can't
order.
operate in the US or something.
Just
Yeah.
don't. And now TikTok's like, so what? What is happening? We
So
did
we
this
will-
thing you told us to, and now we don't know. Two judges. There were two separate orders. One banned. One stopped the Trump administration from forcing the removal of TikTok from app stores, because that was a thing that could have happened over the last couple of weeks. And another completely banned, killing TikTok on today's date. But TikTok, the company still doesn't know what's going to happen, right?
We were playing around with headline ideas for this story, and the one we went with was the Trump administration has ghosted TikTok, and
Basically,
I think the other, the other alternative was left
TikTok's
them
like,
on red,
hey, want to go out for
hilarious.
coffee? Want to go out for coffee?
Yeah.
That sounds good. At some
No. The Trump
point.
administration was like, you are not, you're not a good date.
Negging
if
TikTok
you
to the
wore
point where
if you wore a different dress, we would take you out. And then TikTok's like, here's my new dress, and Trump's like, cool. The administration, anyway.
Wow.
So that's pretty funny.
Very personal for you, Charlene. I hope we didn't touch anything here.
No. But I what I'm interested to see is the outcome, which is like if the Trump administration goes away, first of all, what's going to happen to TikTok after that?
When, not if, Charlene. That's all.
I know. I meant when, not if.
We have processes in place. This is all gonna be cleared up.
I don't know about. Fingers crossed. You know what I mean? But anyway, what I was gonna say though is that like when that happens, what's gonna happen to TikTok? Are they gonna? And they went to all the lengths to find a U.S. owner, U.S. partners, Oracle and Walmart. So
TikTok
money probably.
They did say like, oh, we'll probably stick with this deal after like all this mess. So they do want to continue with the Oracle deal, even though Oracle, the most boring company in the world to tie up with TikTok, the hottest like young social network. So anyway,
suddenly people are talking about Oracle again. They're like, oh, we need to hang on to this. Like
nobody's talking about Oracle again. The only good thing to come out of Oracle is Megan Ellison, Larry Ellison's daughter, who's done a great job of like pushing independent movies forward. But that's it. That's it.
Yeah. But there was one more quick thing that you wanted to point out. Dub.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we're currently living in hell and waiting for when there's going to be a vaccine for the COVID-19 epidemic, right? That is kind of what we're all sitting and waiting for, while a lot of the country is pretending this doesn't exist, and a lot of the world is refusing to wear masks. It's not great. But Pfizer announced this week that test trials of their latest vaccine are 90% effective. And just reading a lot of the reporting from science journalists, seems like people are genuinely excited because we were not expecting something. We weren't expecting a number so high. We were expecting at least around 50%, or at least somewhere along the lines of how the flu vaccine works, which is not perfect, but it could get enough people covered where it could stop the epidemic at least. 90% is really exciting. And I bring this up because it's technically a tech story. It's biotech, because they're using a new type of vaccine that sort of reproduces the protein that COVID-19 creates in your body. So it helps your body get used to it, rather than just sticking dead cells into your bloodstream like the flu vaccine and other vaccines. So it's a new technique. It could be really exciting. Again, I also see a lot of people are saying, well, our president said it would be coming, and look, it's here. To be clear, this vaccine from Pfizer came from a German lab, had nothing to do with the like crazy push Trump was doing. This is a very lucky thing, and I think it's a great thing, but we also have to really rally around the science behind this, make sure it's legitimate. I know they're submitting it to the FDA to see like how effective it is and see how safe it is. And just listening to the New York Times podcast today, there are estimates that it could be headed to essential workers and medical workers by as early as January or February, that's pretty good, because we get those folks covered. They'll be able to help people more effectively. There was a great Wired article too about maybe potentially, instead of giving the vaccine to the people who are most vulnerable, give the vaccine to the people who are the most serious super spreaders, because that has been the technique that a lot of Asian countries, honestly, like that's how they've clamped down on it, is because they use the source tracking to figure out who started this, track all the people
Lock
around
them
them,
up.
but really, yeah, lock down the super spreaders, because once you do that, then you can really like just put a damper on everything. So it's exciting. I would say go read about this. It's all we can do now is wear masks, be distant. I know it's the holiday season. You want to go see your families. It is not a safe time. Like, and just yesterday we hit over, was it over 200,000 cases? Like a large amount of cases in the US, the most since last spring when we
Yeah.
were still in lockdown. So things are getting bad again. Hey, be safe, play some video games,
Just
and hopefully
continue
we'll
to
get through
be vigilant.
Yeah.
It's I feel like we've had to be this way for a while. Like I'm not knock on wood. Like I haven't gotten sick in the
Uh-huh.
longest time, just because I've been so much more
Yeah, that's true.
aware of
That's
not
true.
touching my face. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like that's the
And
thing,
wearing
is
masks and other stuff, like it all
it all
helps. Yeah.
helps. While
Yeah.
we wait on the vaccine, we just got to keep doing you can come
Mhm.
to my soapbox
Yeah,
chat
come to her.
next time.
I will say maybe this is a good thing overall of just getting mask culture everywhere, because I saw New Zealand
Yeah.
reported almost no deaths from the flu because everybody is already wearing masks and taking the precautions.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you know what is a weird thing? We've just lived with people dying from the flu. Like just hey, oh well, thousands of people die from the flu every year.
This is
Not
a
much
thing.
we can do
Okay,
about
yeah.
that. Except the thing you could do about that is being empathetic and being considerate about what you do during flu season, wearing masks in general. Even once we kill the COVID, like once we stop the epidemic, I think during flu season, I am always going to be wearing a mask.
Oh
because,
yeah, and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
sanitizing all
Yeah.
the time, all the
That's us
like
for
never
the
touching my
future.
face outside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is
it's
us for the
just
future.
smarter. You just keep
Mhm.
yourself healthier,
Mhm.
and you don't
And
get
keep
other
other
people
people
sick.
healthier too. Yeah. So there's
Exactly.
that. That's our takeaway. Tune in next week for whatever the hell else will happen with this
More personal
presidential election.
grievances. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Before we get to working on, we've got D-Man in the chat who says, yeah, I quadruple mask up and try to use a face shield. So,
Whatever. I
Well,
know
like,
most
can't
medical
go out
workers have
field
2
with
masks
one
and a face
mask
shield.
on,
Yeah.
then
the
like
PE
You need to
face
breathe.
shield
but
things.
yeah.
They look like golf masks. I'm just gonna get my dad to give me his golf visor and like build my own like
I mean,
PPE
you
thing.
could buy it, but also the face shields don't work that well unless like you're actually a medical worker. So
I mean, yeah.
wear a good mask, people. Just wear a mask.
Okay,
Be
let's
considerate.
move straight on to working on,
Yep.
and then we'll have some time to talk to the chat after
Cool.
all of this stuff.
Did you want me to take that, Dev? I can start.
Yeah, just go ahead and throw it to me, and then you could take over.
Okay. Yep. Let's move on to what we're working on this week. Devindra, what have you been spending time on?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I just wrote 2 console reviews, Sterling. I wrote like 6,000
Dude,
words.
yeah.
What more do you want from me? God.
Everything, your whole
Everything.
life.
Well, I am testing some things that I can't talk about, but I can talk about some of the new Radeons, the new AMD hard GPUs that were just announced. I am testing those. We're going to have a review up next week. It's basically just going to be benchmarks and thermal performance, because there's only so much you can say about GPUs and people just want to look at the graphs. But I am interested to see how they perform against NVIDIA's 30 series lineup, because that is what AMD is really pushing. So we'll see how that goes. I'm excited about that. It's funny going from $500 gaming consoles to $600 GPUs, but hey, it's fun. A lot of good game time in my basement. What are you working on, Trillin?
I mean, can you call that work though? Like if you're just gaming,
it is still work because I don't actually
get
I don't actually get time to play the games. Like I can play enough to be like, okay, this works good, and then spend
right
hours
away.
writing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. For me, I've been working on. I'm working on a review. Like my review of the Galaxy Tab A7 went up. That was a tablet that I haven't touched a tablet that's $200 ish in a long time, and it just felt like going back to 2012 or something. It was just like not fun. Working on some year-end stories. I'm back to doing like reporting, the type of story that I like to do, to do some sort of roundup for the end of the year for you guys. And I'm getting in the Nest thermostat which I am very excited about.
Wait,
My
are you
thermostat apparently.
installing that in your apartment? You're allowed
Yeah,
to do that?
I looked at my system and it's compatible. I did the whole compatibility checker thing, and I sent a picture of my wiring to Google, and they had a product manager look over. They were like,
That's cool.
You
And your
look
apartment
like you're good
building's
to go.
okay with that? Like, because that's the thing. Like, normally,
I figure if I can
buildings are
install
like,
it myself, I can
"Don't."
uninstall it myself.
Yeah, good luck. And actually, I'll say I actually just ordered 2 of those too because I need
They
new
look so
thermostats. So
good.
they look all right. I wish they
Um,
were as sleek as the other ones, but hey, we'll all talk about our new thermostats because it's the world we're
I
living in.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing is I'm going to be back to testing a few laptops as well. You know, we've got all the new Intel 11th gen systems coming in, as well as some other. I'm not entirely sure I can talk about one of the ones I'm getting in yet. So stay tuned, though. Stay tuned. We're still working, but at a more reasonable pace this time around. All right. Picks?
Okay, straight into picks. We are still watching the chat. Everybody just know that we are still watching the chat, but video team does want us to end pretty promptly at
We're going to end soon, yeah.
11:45, so.
We'll end soon and then take a couple questions. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, ready?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you're not playing games for work, Devendra, what are you doing to relax?
Well, you know, I like to watch movies about people who inhabit other people's bodies and use that control
I
to
love that.
assassinate people in gruesome ways, incredibly bloody ways that make you think about your identity and your sense of self. So I'm talking about a movie called Possessor by Brandon Cronenberg, the son of Cronenberg, you know, the guy who really popularized body horror and really gross science fiction and different types of stories, like just really extreme movies. This is a movie about an assassin whose job is basically to dive into other people, take them over like puppets. It's very Inception in a way, actually, and remotely control them to commit assassination jobs. And it is really cool. It's really interesting. I think it's a gruesome movie because it's a movie where, you know, you don't just stab somebody once to kill them. You stab them like 20 times, you know, just because you can. There's a lot of gross body horror and kills and stuff in here. But I also think it's a really interesting movie about the idea of identity. You know, like I talk about VR so much, and this movie in a way presents the idea of incepting somebody else's brain like a VR thing, because she's doing it remotely from a pod. And sometimes when you're in VR too long, you start to feel like, oh, what is the real, like, when you come back to the real world, it feels a little jarring because all of a sudden everything you're watching, there's no pixels. Everything you're watching like in VR is just that sense of reality is gone. So this movie dives into that quite a bit. And also there's some cool like future stuff too. Like one of the characters works at this data mining company, and all they do is put on the VR headset so it looks like they're in a boring office. And then through that VR headset, they just stare into people's webcams without them knowing. And just like data mine like what's behind them. Like, oh, this is a, you know, Venetian blind. This is a gray curtain. And that's the entire company. That's their job. It's sort of like an extreme version of Google or Facebook data mining you, you know, the fears we all have. So there's that. I think it's a really cool science fiction movie, very extreme. So if you're not into body horror, if you're not into like, you know, extreme gore or anything, this is probably not for you. I watched the uncut version of this, and I can't stop thinking about it. I think it's a really deep and interesting movie that is also bloody and a lot of fun and really interesting as well. But what have you been watching, Kerwin?
Wait, where can we watch Possessor? Where can I watch Possessor?
You can stream it. You can stream it from iTunes or any of your video on demand choices.
Okay,
it's up there. Yeah.
I spent this past weekend. This is not my pick, but I spent this past weekend watching the entire Lord of the Ring and the Hobbit series of films on HBO Max.
Hell yeah to half of that. But yeah.
I mean, I've already seen all of LOTR. And I had seen maybe the first and the third movies of The Hobbit. So I was like, all right, well, and I wasn't very impressed. No. I was like, oh, forgettable. But then like I was like, let's watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was trying to watch the whole thing in sequence so that I would be like drawn in. And like I love fantasy, so I'm good just having it play in the background anyway. But you were telling me, Dev, you had like some sort of different experience with The Hobbit because I,
mean,
don't think I ever saw it in
forget,
theaters.
Did you forget what happened with The Hobbit? Like Peter Jackson.
I don't remember. I think it was in Singapore.
No, were you in like 2012?
Yeah.
2010? Really?
No, you know what? 2012, I had just moved over to New York and I was studying 24/7. I did not do anything fun.
So, I mean, based on just how wildly successful The Lord of the Rings was, Peter Jackson like had this idea. He wanted to do 48 FPS filmmaking, 48 FPS 3D, high frame rate 3D filmmaking for the Hobbit movie.
Oh boy.
And I sat down very excited to see it. And from the very opening scene of that first Hobbit movie in the theater, I just wanted to tear my eyes out because it looked so bad. It looked like a bad soap opera in a way. Like there's a point where clarity in an image takes you out of the world, and it looked really clear. I think my first idea was just like, wow, it looks like there are giants in front of me, and the window that's normally there in a theater, you know, the window between the audience and the screen is just kind of gone. Then after a while, I realized, oh no, I don't like this. This is actually incredibly ugly because all of a sudden, all the sets looked like cheap soap opera sets. The entire movie looked like a cheap soap opera. Gandalf's robes just looked like linen from Walmart or something. It just looked like garbage. So, and Peter Jackson had the power to basically force a lot of theaters to convert and add technology to project these three movies in this format. Right. Nobody else really took advantage of it. So it was a big expense for a lot of people. I saw the first two movies in 40 FPS. And the movies themselves just aren't great. They're not exciting. They're not interesting. They don't have any of the life of the Lord of the Rings movies. But seeing them in this format, that was just disgusting, made me hate them even more. And then I saw the last one in like normal 2D, and it was fine. It was just a bad movie. So I hate the Hobbit movies because I love the Lord of the Rings movies so much. But I'm glad you got to revisit Lord of the Rings at least, Sherlyn.
My actual picks though, and yeah, I was watching that just to veg out to some fantasy. My actual picks though, I'm continuing the horror stuff from last month because I watched so many to recommend on this show, and I didn't run out yet. I don't know if you ever told me to watch this before, Dev. The Exorcist TV series.
I think I may have mentioned it, but it was my wife started watching that, so my wife really liked it. It's fun. It's all right. It's not bad.
I like it a lot. I like it because it's just I don't want to spoil any of it for everyone. It's not very similar to the original film. First of all.
How far are you?
I finished all of it. I've already finished all of it.
Because it's not similar, but it is technically a pseudo sequel in a way that The Exorcist, because there were Exorcist sequels, but it is a sequel to the original movie in a surprising way, and I really enjoyed that bit. Yeah.
That turned out to be pretty.
And we don't need to spoil it, but it is a
thing. The second season is all about that, but the first season was not really about that. The first season on its own is just a wonderful supernatural, show that you can watch. It's got the thrills, it's got the plot, it's just characters that draw you in. It's great. So I really like that. And then if you're still trying to check out some spooky stuff, check out Exorcist on TV.
I will say I think Evil did a lot of what that show was trying to do.
Exactly.
I like Evil better. But hey, they're different flavors, They're very different. I think Evil is something that's tangentially spooky. It's not as scary as Exorcist is because there are definitely scary
fewer
bits
scares.
There
are scary bits, but I was able to recommend Evil. Get a friend to watch Evil, even though she didn't really like horror shows. Whereas like Exorcist is something I would never recommend to her. And one final spooky recommendation for this episode is Haunted on Netflix. It's a documentary series. This is my trashy recommendation. This is my
so bad.
I know,
but okay.
I like it though because it's so bad.
It's just like people in a room who are like,
stories.
I was definitely haunted at one point in my life. Yeah.
And then Netflix like recreates these stories, and it's so funny.
So bad.
I like the diversity on the show. I mean, there's a Filipino family that moved to America that's telling their stories of like ghosts haunting their house, and the recreations there are some scares in there. But don't take it all with a grain of salt. A lot of people have been like debunking the stories and stuff like that.
It's not good. One thing to shout out that is spooky and really great on Netflix is a movie called His House. check that out.
I
It is
have been meaning to check that
It's
out.
a haunted
Yep.
house movie unlike any you've ever seen. So I really enjoyed that. Yep. Is that it?
Okay, I think we can
yeah.
hit the outro.
I will.
Steph, do you want to do it?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Let's wind things down. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our very own managing editor, Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by Ben Ellman. You can find me online at Devindra on Twitter. I podcast about movies and TV at the /filmcast at /film.com. We just launched a Patreon, so check that out too. Where can we find you, Sherilyn?
Send me all your horror solitaire games or just fun horror games on the PS5. On Twitter, I'm at Sherlyn Lowe.
Email us at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe to us on anything that gets podcasts, including Spotify. Thanks for joining us, folks. We are out.
Okay.
All right. Now we have 5 minutes for YouTube chat.
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes or so. I think we can push it a little bit
we could go
longer,
like 10.
Just, yeah, we go a
I
bit.
don't think that we need so much. Anyway, George is asking about M1 chips and boot camp. What about boot camp?
They never mentioned boot camp, and I would wager a guess that no, you cannot do that. I need to confirm with Apple because they never answered my question actually about that. But this is a completely different architecture. So think about it logically, right? The whole reason boot camp exists is because Apple went to x86 chips, Intel chips, and they were able to just run Windows. You know, it just shows up as a computer running Windows. It's totally fine. The M1 is basically an iPad transformed, an iPad chip transformed into notebooks in the Mac Mini. So you can't run Windows on those. It's just the architecture just doesn't work for it. Maybe eventually Windows on ARM could be a thing on the M1 chip, but
on these M1s, yeah.
Nobody likes Windows on ARM. So I don't think there's a major rush for that. If anything, I think we're probably going to see some optimized hardware from Parallels and VMware to virtualize Windows again, but it's probably going to be a lot slower than it was, with Macs on Intel hardware, just because they have to re-emulate the whole x86 process. So it's going to be confusing. I haven't heard of anybody actually using Boot Camp in years, because that was a big thing when the Intel switch happened. But since then, it just feels like, that kind of died off. So either you use VMware for a couple virtualized instances of something you want, or you still live in the Mac world,
Like, there's another person, Mulligan, in the chat who says, if VS Code can run in MacBook Air with the M1 M1 chip with 8 gig of RAM, iPad Pro has 6 gigs of RAM now. Maybe 2021, the iPad Pro with an A14X could run it, theoretically.
Sure. That's beyond my knowledge, but yes, sure. That sounds right.
Yeah, and I mean, just reading that is like, I understood some of those words.
Some of that makes sense, yeah.
If you want to talk about like audio interfaces or like any of that stuff, then that's speaking my language. But
I will say this: the M1 chips put the iPad Pro in a really interesting spot, right? Because I think for a while we thought the iPad Pro is Apple's Surface competitor, which was kind of limited by its ability to only run iPad apps and iOS stuff. Because of the M1 chip, Macs are going to be getting iOS apps, and that's going to be a big shift for them. What does this mean retroactively for the iPad Pro? Will we eventually see some sort of like Finder-like interface on the iPad Pro? Who knows? Apple has always been very distinct about how it's positioning those things, but maybe the iPad Pro will get faster. Maybe we'll get an 8 gig of RAM iPad Pro next year. I really like that hardware.
That would bring it much closer to proper 2-in-1 software level. It would be nuts. iPad OS has been improving over time, though, for like that sort of use case. So I wouldn't put that beyond the realm of possibility.
Okay, so here's a weird, wild guess that I was thinking about even last week. Could there, or no, actually, I might have been watching the stream just yesterday. The show, the post One More Thing stream that you guys did. Do you think that there is a possibility that we could, like, Apple could be slowly growing together this situation? Let me get both fingers on cam.
Into the camera.
Slowly growing together a situation where their iPad Pro is becoming a little bit like a Surface.
I mean,
the
that's
Microsoft
I mean, that's the whole
situation.
that's what we're
been
saying,
the whole
right?
point. Yeah.
Yeah, that has been the whole point.
Okay,
But
so I'm not nearly
No.
as smart as I thought I was.
I don't think Apple's ever going to fully go that way, because one thing they've always had, okay, iOS devices, iPad OS devices, these are touchscreens, these are very different interfaces.
Yep.
MacBooks, these are point and click interfaces, these are keyboards, these are trackpads. We're not going to have touchscreens there. Maybe eventually we'll see touchscreens on Macs, but I don't know if we'll ever see the iPad Pro go the full desktop way, like the point and click way. I don't think it really has to. Like the Surface, as much as I like those devices, they're really for a specific type of user. They're not for everybody. They're limited in certain ways. But hey, if the iPad Pro gets better, maybe future Surfaces will get better.
You're basically touching on the point of this question, the problem that all 2-in-1 makers have been trying to solve, which is that software that works both as a tablet and for point and click is just infuriatingly hard to make. You need to make it touch optimized on one hand, and then you need to make it point and click. Like iPadOS has seen some improvements that made it like friendlier for cursors and keyboard input. But that was very recent. So maybe we'll see more of that soon. And if we do, hopefully, like we're still waiting for Fuchsia. How do you pronounce that?
What?
The Chrome OS / Android kind of interface that Google was supposedly working on. The beauty of Chrome OS.
Look at my skeptical face.
Yeah, I know you're very skeptical of Google.
All this. Let me say, I've been following.
We'll see.
I think this sort of idea for a while. Like, guys, I was at the Windows 8 launch, which was for some reason during Mobile World Congress in like 2011, 2012. So it was like because
it's mobile.
It's mobile, right? So it was a fancy like hotel venue in Barcelona back then, and Windows laid out everything about Windows 8. Microsoft laid out everything. It's like, yeah, we have this whole new touchscreen interface, and it's built for touch first. And it turns out that was a disaster because Windows people like Windows. They like the task they like the start menu. They don't want this weird new start screen. So they had to kind of reverse track with Windows 10, which combined like Windows 7 and 8. So Microsoft has tried everything. I think Apple has just sat back and been like, this seems hard. We're just not going to do this for a while. Like, we're going to have iPads and iPhones, and we're going to have Macs. And I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon. Microsoft is the one struggling to solve this, and Apple typically does not jump into those struggles, right? They jump in when they have a confirmed solution rather than a test solution.
We've got another question from John asking about any insight on the iPhone 13. Really, really early, John.
Damn it, John.
Saying something
let us work. Let us enjoy the 12s for a while.
Fingerprint / Face ID on the same phone. This is something that we've been talking about, like even in the iPhone 12.
We've talked about this for the past year.
And also like the persistence of the notch, the fact that like the Pixel 4a has a pinhole camera. These are all things that I think a lot of people would love to see on an iPhone, but iPhone...
And also, are they
Let's say,
are they even going to call it the iPhone 13? Because so many places in the world are like so superstitious about that, where that's likely going to be a whole different name next year. May skip it altogether. But the next iPhone, we didn't get a huge design change this time, right? All they did is flatten the edges. So maybe next year's the one where we can actually get a interesting new design, kill the notch, keep the flatness because the flatness is good. I just want a faster refresh rate screen. That's all I want. Give me a better battery and a faster refresh rate, at least 90 hertz.
Yeah, maybe that's when they'll do another new naming standard thing, because it'll be such a phenomenal change. Who knows?
Yeah. iPhone 2021. Ooh.
There was
iPhone 21.
Yeah, like. Did they skip 9? They skipped 9.
They did.
Right? Like
they did skip 9.
Straight to 10. Chat was going crazy again because there was Kyle's dog for just 2 seconds. Yeah, I don't know what Kyle's dog's name is, but it's very cute.
I don't remember
either. It's famous now. Yeah.
I think that we should take the slate that we have before the stream actually starts and just put that over this picture.
Dogs. Yeah, that's just cheap view grabbing, basically.
But
hey, it's great.
You have a few more questions, or do we want to? I mean, I want to be cognizant of the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
One more question. Anything?
No, mostly people talking
Okay.
about just like M1 whatever.
Hey.
Someone said that it could be the iPhone S20 Ultra.
Yeah.
Never Apple copying other people's names, I don't think. Almost
No.
always people copying Apple's names.
Generally how it goes.
Yeah.
Just also want to
Generally.
throw out another shout out. Again, Jess and I did an hour of PS5 gameplay yesterday. That was pretty cool. So just check that out. That is a whole thing you could watch. And we did a whole Xbox stream last Friday, so you can check that out too.
Okay, so I have a timer running just for like
Mhm.
general like podcast timing things.
Mhm.
And so, Dev, since you said that you didn't like high FPS stuff, I'm going to give you literally a minute to talk about why high FPS isn't good in relation to Ong Lee
Perfect.
and Long Halftime Walk
Thank you.
and Gemini Man and so on and so on.
Well, no, I didn't like the way Peter Jackson implemented it because it looked like trash, and he didn't change his filmmaking in a way. They didn't change the sets, they didn't change the costumes to reflect the fact that you can literally see all the imperfections, and they didn't think about
I
that. I
mean,
think
to
Gemini
be
Man
fair,
did that a little more. Like Gemini Man was more cognizant of it. Less, not a great movie either, but I like the way that looked because it was doing it for action, and the action sequences in Gemini Man looked unlike anything I had ever felt or seen before. So go look at my coverage around that. Yeah.
okay, but to be fair, clothes in Middle Earth in that time period were probably not great anyway. You know what I mean? So maybe it's just historically accurate.
I'm pretty sure Elrond has good fashion, like better fashion than like Target.
You were saying Gandalf, so I was like, I'm sure Gandalf's clothes are pretty ratty,
I'm sure Gandalf's
considering he
clothes are
keeps
pretty
falling
ratty
through
too, because
holes.
he was Gandalf the Grey at that point, right?
Yeah.
So,
well,
but
Hobbit, he was great. Yeah, exactly.
Charlene, you have not seen this thing, so you have not seen how bad it looked. Okay, it looked terrible. It was like imagine a soap opera with Lord of the Rings characters, and it is that weird ultra clear soap opera effect. So anyway,
Yeah,
don't
I
make
get
me
it. I get
revisit
what you're
the
saying.
world of the Hobbit. I don't even think I wrote that was before I was in Engadget, but
Yeah.
man, did I hate that. Yeah, we did do / filmcast reviews of all the Hobbit movies, so you can go hear my hate about it back then.
Legolas, though.
Okay, I think we're probably done with all of this stuff.
We're done.
Yeah.
So let's thank the video team. This stream comes to you via our video team led by Kyle Mock. I will get the name of his dog after we're done with this. With Owen Davidoff, Julio Barrientos, Luke Brooks, and sometimes Justin Shark.
Jason, I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep correcting you.
I always say
Shark.
Jason. Yes, I always say Justin. Jason Shark. Excuse me. But of course, it's powered by everyone in the chat. Thank you to Mark Dell, Bruna, D-Man, everybody who constantly comes and keeps the chat fresh. That's always so much fun for us. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye. All right. Good job, team.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like have
I think it should be.
It.